How do you do, ladies and turds, and welcome back to another lovely video. If you love games like It Takes Two or A Way Out, where teamwork isn't just encouraged, it's required, then you need to take a yonder at Split Fiction. This is the latest game from the same developers, and let me tell you, this game is quite something. In fact, it is one of the most creative games I have ever played, and I'd highly recommend it. As for the story, you play as Zoe and Mio, two writers chasing their dreams of getting published. They get invited to Raiders Publishing, where they're told that their work has actually been accepted, which is pretty spiffy, right? However, there's something they're not telling you. It turns out that Raider isn't trying to publish anything. Instead, he spent the last 20 years of his life building this giant machine. A machine that turns fiction into reality. But there's a catch here. You don't just read your own stories, no, you become the main character of your story, playing through from start to finish as it slowly unfolds. The problem though, is that Raider isn't using this machine to help writers on their journey of getting published. Instead, he's trying to steal all of their ideas, all of their creativity, and then trapping them in their own stories as test subjects. He wants to become like the giant corporation, kind of like an AI, just doing everything all at once. But something went wrong. Mio was extremely suspicious right from the start and didn't want to participate in any of this like giant machine. So she tried leaving, but Raider refused to let her go. Things got a little physical and she was actually pushed into Zoe's bubble. This machine though wasn't designed to handle two minds in the same bubble, so it started glitching out, forcing Zoe and Mio to jump between each other's stories. Now they have to work together, find the glitches in the machine, and escape before they're lost in this machine forever. If you want to know the rest of the story, then I'd recommend playing yourself. I'm not going to spoil anything else here. As for the gameplay, this is what makes Split Fiction so good. So each chapter is actually based on one of the characters' writing styles. So for Zoe, she's more into fantasy, dragons, castles, having magic, and stuff like that. Whereas Mio, she's more into sci-fi, cyber ninjas, neon cities, robots, and horror. So as you're playing through the chapters, you can see each of their personalities reflected in the levels as you go on. And that's all spiffy, right? Like that'd be awesome to be in kind of like a VR style simulation of your story and be the main character. However, these two are trapped in this machine, and the only way out is to find these glitches. Because the machine is slowly falling apart, Raider on the outside is trying to take him out without ruining his life's work. And because of that, things get a little weird and unpredictable, and the game basically wants you to break it, but in the right way. There are also boss battles you have to fight that can get pretty difficult to defeat without dying a few times first, and each chapter is basically made up of 3 different sections where the story slowly starts to evolve, giving you different abilities or puzzles to solve. For example, in one of the fantasy worlds, you gain shape-shifting abilities, allowing you to transform and adapt to challenges. In another one, you're teleported into like a Harry Potter style magical world, full of enchanted puzzles and spellcasting. Whereas in the sci-fi worlds, one chapter turns you into cyber ninjas, where you're dodging lasers and parkouring alongside flying cars, whereas on another one, you're hiding from security robots and then jet skiing through a collapsing facility, all while a giant octopus wreaks havoc around you. It is very awesome, it's very creative, and it always keeps you on your toes. And then there are also the side quests, which are completely optional to do, but I would highly recommend doing them when you see them. And they're called side quests, but they're more like mini stories that completely change the gameplay and style from the entire chapter that you're in. So for example, there's a snowboarding sequence where you're flying down a mountain while dodging obstacles and enemies are firing at you. And then there's another one where it's disguised as like a candy birthday level and you're playing as a sweet tooth, only to find out at the end that it's actually like a hoarder level and you have to fight this giant dentist. Another one has you turning into pigs, where one pig can fly by the power of rainbow farts, and the other one can turn into like a spring, and you have to collect apples and unlock doors. And this doesn't even scratch the surface at how much variety there is in these side quests. Each of them basically lets you experience the opposite character's storytelling style, making for some of the most creative moments in this game. Because each chapter and side quest has like different things going on at the same time, every single character has their own unique abilities depending on which world you're in, and it's always changing and making things stay fun. which means that cooperation in this game is a must. This game doesn't let one player do everything either. No, you have to work together. The controls are constantly evolving to match the world, where one time you could be in like a fast-paced action sequence, and then another one you're in like a puzzle level platforming section. And it never settles into one playstyle either. It does split screen and couch co-op correctly, because it forces you to play with a second player, but in the best possible way. Sometimes you're both in the same world and solving these puzzles together, but as the machine slowly starts to fall apart and there's more glitches, like being introduced throughout the story, you're split into like two different realities, and then you have to manipulate each one environment to solve the puzzle together. This game never makes one player feel like they're doing all the work either. Both characters are extremely important, and they all have their own reasons and backstories for doing what they're doing. But I would say, at least go through this game once with a friend, and it'll take you about maybe like 15 to 20 hours from start to finish. As for the graphics and performance, visually, Split Fiction nails it. When it needs to be realistic, it's very detailed, whereas when it needs to lean more into like a cartoony fantasy, it's very bright and completely makes it look believable. Every genre shift feels intentional and polished. As for performance-wise, I was playing on my computer, and not a single time had I had the game frame rate go down, had I had any slackage or anything. The game never crashed on me, it never lagged, and it never had actual glitches that made the computer turn off or anything. Every bug you encounter in this game is part of the gameplay and story, which makes the experience even more immersive. And what's even more crazy is that there are parts where, things get hardcore. There's a million explosions, there's giant bosses, there's like particles flying all over the place, and the game ran smoothly from start to finish. And then whenever things do slow down, it's also on purpose. It's kind of like quick time events where the game gives you about like a few seconds to react midair when you have to shoot like a grappling hook at an enemy or a distance so you don't die. And because of that, the pacing is on point and there's never a dull or slow moment with this game. And then as for the music, each world has its own basically soundtrack, right? Like the cyberpunk levels can be kind of like, whereas the fantasy ones can be more like, and there was definitely a few moments in the game where it does pull on the few heartstrings, and the music starts, playing and reflecting, and it was like this entire section where you have to work together, and the other characters lifting you up, and then you have to solve this giant puzzle, and it brought me to a little tear. Once you get to that part, you'll know what I'm talking about. It involves a giant arrow. You'll see what I'm saying if you've played this game before. So as for Mio, she kind of starts off cold and distant, right? But then you realize and figure out exactly why she's like that. And then as for Zoe, she's the one who's more cheerful and optimistic, but she might be hiding something in the background too. And then as for Radar, right, the main villain, why is he so obsessed with controlling these stories and trying to become like a huge corporation and destroying all these writers? Everything pretty much makes sense as you go throughout the story. So in conclusion, should you buy Split Fiction? 100%. I think this game is completely worth every single penny. It is one of the most creative games I have ever played. Everything changes, it keeps you on your toes, the pacing is beautiful, and you have to play with another person, which makes it that much more interactive and fun. So, if you've played Split Fiction, or if you love It Takes Two and A Way Out, then let me know in the comments down below. Of course, ladies and turds, if you're playing through this game too, tell me how you're enjoying it. And with that said, I hope you enjoy this cheesy little small quick review at Split Fiction. This is probably my game of the year so far that I've played. Anyways, thanks for watching, ladies and turds, and I'll see you all on another lovely video. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.